go ahead and tell the world. Better just quickly little reload here on the Twitch page. So if you said something, I didn't see it. And then I'll say, I'm streaming game dev. Gonna do pathing stuff for tasks. Sounds exciting. Paste. And then over here, and again. All right, so what I did while everyone was away is I made these pipe objects, which obviously don't look very impressive, especially with all the purple background elements. But what I'm going to use these pipe elements for is for task display. And in order to do that, I'm going to want them to pop to the forefront. There's a lot of different ways to have that happen, but I think that if I change the material, I might be able to do it by simply setting the material's priority. Oh, I can't set the priority. Oh. So I think there is a way to have it... Yeah, here, I can set this up as far as I'd like it to be, so it might be possible for me to set this down to like 1500 or even lower and see whether or not it will pop up in front of the other objects. But I don't know if it will, because I can't remember how the shaders in Unity... that's the wrong object. Because I can't remember whether the shaders in Unity actually understand... I think that they have a different set of passes than I remember from, 2002. The hell, come on. Get back here. Oh, I better actually pop up the Twitch account just in case someone ever says anything. Yeah, so if you're just chiming in from somewhere else, I am trying to build a game where you do all the crew parts of a spaceship, and all I've got to do is make it work. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to make these pop through. The other way to do it is just to have two cameras, which is what I'll do if I can't figure this out in about 2 more seconds here. So we'll just change the geometry, or the shader. Didn't I change this? That's weird. Huh. Well, either way, it doesn't seem to have actually helped any. Yeah, that's not doing anything. So we're going to have a separate camera that only renders pipes. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to pop over to the main camera here and create a second camera, which we will call a camera. There it is. This one is going to have a depth only, and it's going to only draw one layer. Which layer? Well, we'll need to add one. We're going to call it model UI, or maybe 3D UI. And then so back over here into the camera, we'll just set it up to only draw the 3D UI. And then the main camera doesn't draw the 3D UI. There we go. So when we do that, what we'll be able to do is set these cables up as 3D UI, like so. And now you can see through it. See? Very basic setup. And obviously it can be very distracting. So we're going to have to be careful that our setup doesn't make it feel really strange. However, what we're going to want to do now is move this back into a position where we can actually view the ship as, as a system that we can edit and look at and stuff like that. So we'll just tip it and tilt it until it's roughly right. It doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. So basically, the next step is to take these pipes and have them get automatically created whenever someone has a task to do. And to do that, we're going to actually need to reprogram this generated cable a little bit, because the generated cable, it has a specific method of determining where it's going to go, and that method is not suitable for our current setup. So what we're going to need to have is a method of creating this chain that doesn't involve going through setup. So basically what happens in setup is it just creates the chain. So we're going to rename this, and we're going to call it setup chain, or we're going to call it pathfind chain, pathfind cable. And that way we will be able to have it have a task that builds that chain without this function, and we'll just call build chain. We'll call this visualize or something like that. Make mesh. There we are. And we'll have that have something we can do here. Context menu. Oh, my fingers are cold. All right. I'm going to put on a half glove because my fingers actually hurt. I was playing Kerbal and my hand was over on the mouse for too long and didn't notice how cold it had gotten in here. I can move the space planes around without moving my hand at all, just a tiny little twitch here and there and occasionally a click. Not so easy when you're typing. So what we're going to need here is another method of creating this chain, and to do that we're going to go ahead and have a public void setup with just a vector3 chain list, which is actually going to be not a vector3 but a list of, or just a task. Now in order to do that we're going to have it use the correct namespace, which is crew. So with that in mind, this chain should now be able to take the task's stops, the path here, and this is all a list of path elements. Well, we can turn path elements into vector3s pretty easily, so that's what we're going to do. So chain.clear for each path element p in task.path, and then what we're going to do is adjust my half glove and then try more. So then we say chain.add p.transform.position. But here's the thing. The actual chain elements need to be in local space. So we're just going to go ahead and stick this in here to transform them into local space. And then at the end, we're just going to make mesh. There we go. So now what we can do is we can have our tasks create something like this. But the thing is, here we've got a start and a stop that get specified, and we actually don't need that anymore. So the only time we're going to need to pathfind as a cable, only way we're going to want to pathfind a cable is when we have a start and a stop position, and we're not ready to do that. So we're actually just going to comment out all of this cable part. Later on, we'll probably put that as a sub-object, a descendant class of some kind. And that's all good. So now all we can do is pass it a task, and that means that this is pretty ideal for us. Now, if we're thinking about how to create one of these generated cables, here's the thing. It requires a few objects. It requires a type of mesh filter, and that also requires a type of mesh renderer. No. Where is it? It's a... Oh, I thought it was spelled renderer. Did I get that wrong? It's called mesh renderer. Oh, there's no open paren. It got very confused. Renderer. Mesh renderer. Thank you. Jesus. One of the things I don't really like about this is that for some reason, it'll always assume that you didn't mean to type something. You see how it's not typing? That's great. I love how it doesn't do what it's supposed to. I assume that one of the 18 billion settings that you have to manually type is something to make it actually type when you type, but I don't know which one. So we're back over into here, and we've got some barfing going on. Aha! So we've got these start and stops, which are unimportant now. So we're going to comment them out. Perfect. Grind, 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 and done. Done? Done. Done. So this is all well and good. We have one more issue with this, and that is that right now we actually grab the shared mesh because of the way that we sometimes do this when we're not in play mode. And if we don't grab the share mesh, then it creates a memory leak when you're not in play mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to create a prefab for this. There's really no other option. So we're going to go ahead and name this a path. I'm going to delete these sub-objects. We don't need them anymore. And this path, we're going to take out the mesh. There we go. And that will allow us to always create a new mesh when we need it. Also, we're going to change the radius to 0.25 and drop that into our prefabs list. Boom. Then we can just delete them. We don't need them anymore. Come on. There we go. I'm about to sneeze. Sorry. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to have the tasks able to create one of those paths. We got two options for that. We can either have them find the path by having a universal object with a link to it, or we can have them each have a link to a path object of their own choosing, which at this stage would all be the same. But later on, for different kinds of paths, we could use different kinds of path objects with different colors and different pop-ups. So let's go ahead and have them be unique per task. And to do that, we just need to track down some of the tasks that we've built here, like this guy. And we're going to have to add in a path prefab. We have two options. We can either add it in as a path prefab, or we can have it as a sub-object of the task. And since the task already is an object in the scene, and we're never going to have more than one path per task, I think it would be good if it was a semi-permanent member of the crew. So that's what we'll do. We'll go public, generated cable, path, and then it'll just be get, return, get component in children, generated cable. There we go. And let me blow my nose because I'm about to sneeze directly into the mic. I'll mute you for a second here. It's pretty handy having a hardware mute button. Just checking that the audio came back when I unmuted myself, and it looks fine. So now what we have is a path, and when we start our game, we're going to want to... Oh, there's actually another path, so this is going to have to be a path visual. Now, when we actually start this, we're going to want to have it here. We'll go ahead and say path visual dot setup this. And then when we're done, we're going to want to hide it. So we'll say path visual dot enabled or set active false. No, that's not how you say set active. I must have to say game object set active false. And so when we go over here into the generated cable, we are going to want to have it so that when it sets itself up, it turns itself on. There we are, and that's all we need to do. The next step is to just drop one of those prefabs into the task. That didn't quite hit. There we are. And we're going to want to just set it up at 0, 0, 0. It doesn't actually matter, but it's better if it's at 0, 0, 0. Just because it's less confusing. So that's a task. And then we got another task hiding here somewhere. I think it is in the bridge. Guess not. I thought there was another task somewhere. Tasks. All right, so what we've got is inside of task test. All right, that's the one we're looking for. Oh, it's inside of a blocked out door that's not even on this ship. Well, no wonder that task wasn't popping up. It's not in the right place. That's fine. We can actually just get rid of this ship, I think. It's just going to confuse us. Let me just take a look at it real quick here. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to see, but it's really, really obsolete. So goodbye. We can rebuild it later if we need to. So now what we would probably prefer to do is have another tasks object somewhere else. And I think that the best place for another tasks object is right here on the bridge. So we're going to paste that in. Okay, so that didn't copy. And that's actually got several tasks, but let's see, that's got the path right there in it. As long as this mesh filter is empty, that's fine. So this tasks, we're going to go ahead and make it just one by one. Each of these tasks is going to be its own thing. So we're going to go ahead and call this maintain engine. And then down here, we're going to go ahead and call this pilot ship. And rather than this duty, it's pointing to the duty on the engine door, which doesn't exist anymore. We're going to have it point to the duty here. And that should do it. We're going to give it an importance of 10. Right, so that seems like it's all good. Yep, it's all good. So we're going to save. I think we're going to reset the ship just because I haven't made that happen automatically yet. And now let's see whether it works. Oh, I have an error. Did you see that error? I don't know what the error was. Let's take a look here. So now what you can see is that we have a pipe pop up. It's actually within the ship, so it's very hard to see here in this view. But if we pull it out so we can see it a little bit better, you can see it's a straight shot. And the reason for that is quite simple. It's a straight shot from the room to the cargo hold. So what we're going to do is, to make that a little bit more interesting, we're going to grab these two objects and drag them to the side, and then I'll take this object and move it back here, and that'll create a nice little bit of chaos. However, I don't think I dragged it quite far enough, so we're going to grab it and drag it a little bit further again. There we go. We're going to have to reset the ship after that, and then we'll hit play and see whether or not it comes up with a zigzag. Zigzag, see, perfect. So that is the basic idea. The tasks will quickly show up as they need to. And here you can see we've got a fun little error. Let's take a look. Path visual.setup this. So for some reason, the path visual isn't working on the second time through. Of course not, because it's disabled. You have to specify to search for disabled objects or it won't actually search for them. So now it should vanish and then come back. I'm pretty sure it's vanishing and coming back because it keeps popping up down here. So I think that what we have here is a task that is working as specified. It's just that there's no off time because we don't have any other tasks to draw anybody's attention. What I don't like, however, is how it overlaps so aggressively with the rest of the tasks. So in this case, we've also got the task of piloting, at least I think we do, and we can't see it because it's the same exact line, like you can see there. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate out a gentleness to the path so that it's a little bit softer and a little bit more interesting. And that's not too hard. All we have to do down here is when we set up the task and we grab all of these, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to move every single point a little bit towards either the start or the end. So for that, we just need to grab the start and the end. So vector 3 start point equals, yoink, grab this. And it's actually just going to be task.path 0. And then we're going to have an end here as well. And then down here, we're going to go ahead and grab a vector 3 p, or vector 3 point. And then we're going to make that equal to this. And we're just going to want to nudge it a little bit towards whichever point we prefer. Now, the problem with this is that it's a for each, and we really do want instead a percentage. So for int I equals 0, I is less than task.path.count, I plus plus. And then what we can say is, that's not I, that's an A. And say is float percent equals float I divided by float task.path.count. And that'll give us a percentage between 0 and 1, except it's not actually correct. It's going to give us a percentage between 0 and like 0.98. We need to subtract 1 from the count in order to get it from between 0 and 1. Pretty basic stuff, assuming that your path is not short. So if task.path.count is less than 2, debug.log error, no path for, and then name, parent.name, transform.parent.name, a task.name. There we are, and return. Because otherwise we'll have all sorts of annoying errors, and this is actually going to be path.count -1. There we are. Now we actually have it with fewer errors. Maybe. So then we just say path element p blah 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 blah, same as before. And then we grab the point from the path element, and what we're going to want to do is move the point towards one of those other points based on our current percentage. So percent equals, and then we'll just say vector3.lerp, or not percent equals, sorry, point equals vector3.lerp, and then we're going to have it lerp between the two at the same time. So it's another vector3.lerp, and it's going to be between the start point, which is start, and the current point, and it's going to be percent. Except for it's not actually going to be percent, because if it's percent, then we'll have a really nasty time of it. So we're going to have a mathf.square root percent. And then we're going to have a vector3.lerp point and mathf.square or power, or just percent times percent. And then percent. And that should give us a much more graceful curve that is a little bit offset. We can also do additional stuff if we really want to round it off, but I think this should be okay. Let's try it out. You can see how it's not dead on anymore. It's now a much more, it's a different pattern of curves. So because of that, it's a little bit less likely to just completely overlap with other elements. In the long run, we're probably going to have some much more complicated setup where it's going to be like really testing to see whether or not there are other paths in the area and piping around them so that you always have a clear view and that sort of stuff. But for now, let's leave it for this. But we do have a problem here. The bridge chamber path is not actually activating. And I think that that's not coming up as something that the bridge is going to do. So when we take a look at the bridge, it has a post, and its post has a keyword of pilot. If we look up here at maintain engine, it has no engine door duty pilot. So there it is. There's the keyword match. But apparently, if the task is, even if the task is on ourselves, we're not seeing it. That doesn't seem right. Let's go ahead and hit play and see whether this triggers, because this will fill up if it does. So it's not actually giving us this as a response, even though it's on the object itself. So to check that out, we're going to go in and, well, I think that we're probably going to want to drop this task into that task box. That might be it. It might just be that we forgot to set it up. Yeah, you can see how there's no... It doesn't actually go out and fetch the tasks, so we're going to have it do that. If tasks.count equals 0, then tasks equals get components in children tasks. Unfortunately, that returns a different kind of list. So in order to do this, we would have to actually do a list task. Tasks equals, what do you say? Tasks dot add range, I believe, is what we want, because that isn't enumerable. And then we can return tasks. There we go. That should fetch any tasks that are within us, rather than requiring us to actually go out and remember to do it every time. So when we go and hit play here, we should see tasks pop up here. There it is. And you can see how you now get to pilot the ship. So the only problem with this is that now it looks like we're no longer getting this other path. And if we pop on over, we can see that this maintain engine is not getting triggered properly. And if we take a look at the duty, the tasks are 0. So it looks like that one's not triggering properly. I think that we might be checking to see... no, wait, that can't be right. So something here is failing to grab the tasks, which is kind of strange. When we manually specified it, it worked, but I didn't want to keep manually specifying it. But I'm trying to figure out what that could be. It's got to be the functional room. So let's pop it open. We'll be over here in, I guess it doesn't matter which one. They're all the same. So let's, this one here, path element, box collider. Where's my functional room? I guess post descends from it. Yeah. So here we have a post, and what it does is it grabs the duties from our base object. So let's go ahead and take a look at our base object. We grab a list of duties like this. It's very basic. And then what we do is look for a list of tasks. And the way we get the tasks is for each of our duties, we go through the tasks and we add them to our duties. For some reason, this isn't causing the system to correctly find the tasks. I can't think of why. So the only difference is that in this case, what we do is we actually go and we grab all of the tasks that all of the duties that match the keywords. So it should be going out and finding every duty that matches the word pilot, and the engines does. But let's go ahead and just note this down. Debug.log. Oh, we can actually just do it. We can say print duties. So that's what we'll do. We'll hit play, and then we'll pause it. And then we will tell this thing to print its duties. You can see how piloting the ship and manning the bridge are both set up. Piloting the ship is in the engine door. I'm not sure why it's called pilot the ship, because I'm too lazy to have renamed it, I guess. But we found the duty. The problem is that we're not finding the task. Pilot ship, man bridge. So it's not finding this task. See how there's no tasks? First things first, let's rename this man engine so that we stop getting confused. But it's not triggering, so that duty is not properly getting queried. So let's go ahead and just here in on debug tasks here in on tasks, what we do is we grab all of the chained tasks. Maybe that's where it's failing, but it wasn't failing before, was it? Let's go ahead and add in the maintain engine maintain engine task manually. Because it might simply be that the chaining is wrong now. because I changed how that works. Okay, so it's the chaining that's wrong. And so what's happening here is now that the bridge actually has a task on it, it's just finding its own task, and it's no longer trying to chain it properly. So when we ask the post for all of its tasks, it's the same as with this functional room base object. So when we ask this thing for all of its tasks, it goes through and it says, okay, I'm going to find all of the tasks that I can, and we're going to go ahead and grab the chained tasks. Chained tasks is up here. It adds itself to the list of rooms we've checked for tasks. Then it gets all of its local tasks, which are right here. And if we look over here at post, there's no overriding of local tasks, but there is an overriding of duties. So here you can see that local task is going to end up getting this, I believe. But I can't know that for sure because I've forgotten how it works. If I override it with a new, like I've done here, is that going to end up using the version of duties that's on this class, even though it's been overridden? Oh, and I can't remember how C# works with that. Well, I can actually check. So what we're going to do is we are going to simply do a thing where we do debug.log post version, and then we're going to go ahead and put one in here. Functional room version. And they should be exactly equal. Let's find out. Okay, so they get the functional room version both times, and there's no post version. So that explains why it's not working. Okay, so this is interesting to know. So if I override a getter, it doesn't correctly... You know what? I should probably put the name here, because there are, in fact, a variety of... It's not all the same object. But if it's never firing, that means there's something wrong, because this is definitely supposed to be checking. Wait. Could you actually please maybe reload so that I don't have the same thing over and over? And... Alright, so here you can see that we've got the version on the small dorms and on the bridge. So that means that the small bridge here, which is clearly specified as a post, is not actually using the post version of duties. Fun note, C# works a little bit differently than I thought. So that means that what we're going to want to do is have a function, because that way I can override it without any difficulty. So, or can I override here? Do I have to? Let's see whether or not that works. Well, we have now learned the difference between new and override. Good. I'm so glad. So when you type new, it only overrides it for the descendant class, not for the original functions on the original class. Or it does something strange. I'm not sure exactly what, because it's a getter and setter property, so it might have special rules. But either way, I meant to type override. I have no idea why I typed new. I think it might be because originally that was not a getter and setter. It was just a list, and I couldn't override just a random variable. All right, so now the whole thing works. Let's go ahead and try it out. Oh, fantastic! It's such a beautiful, beautiful result, don't you think? It may not look like much, but this is a good start for what we need to do. And that is that we are going to have these pop up with additional data as to who is doing them and how much longer they've got and that sort of stuff. It's also worth considering for me whether or not it would be good to have some kind of, I mean, the uncolored purple texture is not the best. I don't know whether or not it would be better if I had a different type of texture for that. So that's not too hard. We'll just go down here. Unlit color. We'll switch it up for the standard here. And let's just go ahead and add a little bit of emission, which we will make purple. And hit play. And hit play. There we are. It's not very good, though. So there are a lot of things that it would be nice if I could make better. Like if I have a setup for this where it is like a depth filter or maybe a tune. Ooh, that's not what I want. There's lots of potential for what we would like to do with this, and just getting started with the mechanics of it, so you'll have to forgive the ugliness of it. That's how it always is when you're just starting up. It's always ugly as hell. For example, this doesn't even have the correct cap on it. And the reason for that is a little bit strange. It's because I put doors on everything, and it got very confused. If I were to delete this door Z, I bet it would work. Yep. So I put doors on all of this crap. Let's go ahead and delete all of the door Z's. Doors. And then we'll want to refresh the ship, reset it, and see whether or not it still works. It does not. Okay. So I did put those doors in for a reason, and I guess it would make more sense if I were to There we are. There we are. I guess it would make more sense if I were to just change it so that it worked with the door object rather than trying to delete the door object. And that's not too hard. All we have to do is when we are trying to find whether or not there is an object along in front of us here, what we're going to do is we're going to do this door check when we find the door. We're going to want to make sure that we specify ourselves so we don't find our own door, obviously, right? And that's not hard. We just put comma and then this. Pretty basic. I didn't have to do that before because there was no door before. Oh, is it taking a transform? Transform, my bad. And now, when I hit play, it should work without having random halls open to space. That's better. All right, so I'm definitely going to want to have a progression system for marching these along a path so that they move, so they don't overlap quite so much. But before we do that, let's go ahead and have it have a pop-up visual, a UI element that explains what the heck's going on. So to do that, all we're going to do is create a new UI element and have it follow that object around. There are a lot of ways to do that, and some of them are substantially more complicated than others. One of the ways to do that is to use an in-world canvas, but the problem with that is that if we move farther from the ship, the canvas would get smaller and more illegible. So we really do want a screen space canvas that follows it around. Then we have two options on that. We can either have a canvas for every single one, meaning that we can just have it embedded within the pathing unit, or we could have a canvas that has a bunch of them on it. That would be a lot cheaper. Let's go ahead and do it the fast and easy way, though. We'll start by having these path elements share their childish space with a new kind of element, and that's going to be a canvas. There we go. And this canvas is going to have a couple of elements on it. So for starters, we're going to go ahead and add in a UI panel. There we are. And we're not going to want it to stretch. We're just going to want it to staple. And then we're going to set it up with a specific width and height. We'll say 300 by 600 just for, no, that's way too big. Say 150 by 300. Just for starters. And then we can add in all sorts of fun stuff. Like we'll make it bluer. Or even darker. Let's go ahead and make it black. And then on top of that, we can add in another panel. And then give it a little bit of an offset, like 3, 3, 3, 3. Make it a whiter color, like a bright blue maybe, with some opacity to it. And then we can add in all sorts of stuff. So, for example, a text box. And the text box can be up at the top, and it can say something like task name. And we'll just center that and put it in the middle somewhere and give it a best fit. Task name. And we'll make this a little bit more visually readable by pulling it down a little bit. There we are. And then we'll have a T minus and then a couple other things. So we'll call this name. And then we'll have a hours left. When we have the hours left, we'll call this like a T minus 8. And it's just going to be off to the left. We're not going to do a best fit. And maybe it won't be quite that far left. Something like this. And then what we're going to want to do is have it say how many people are on the task. Later on, we'll fix this up to have much more detailed characteristics. But for now, it's fine if we do it quick and easy. So we're just going to duplicate this and call this numWorkers. And we'll move that down like so. And we'll just say 2 workers. So if we then grab this panel and shrink it so that it's the right size, like that, and we can drag it down, pop it in the middle, like that. Actually, we're going to want to put it up here. There we are, like that. The next task is going to be to have this track where it is in the game world. And that's not too hard. We're going to need a new script for that, which we're going to call UI track parent. Grind, 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 and drop it in. Is it going to be on the panel? I guess it has to be on the panel, doesn't it? So what we're going to want to do here is, instead of calling it UI track parent, we're going to just delete that. And we're going to call it UI track 3D. Because it's not the parent. It's some arbitrary function that's not the parent. Drop this in. Come on. There we are. Public transform track. And then in update, we're just going to set our position to be the correct place. So that's going to be... we're going to want to have a camera. So protected camera... camera. I guess we want to say new because of the way that that's still a reserved keyword there. Get. And then actually that's going to be underscore camera. And it's not going to be new or get or any of that crap. And then we have a public camera, which we're going to have that be a new, has to override the existing. And then we are going to go ahead and get that camera. So if no camera, camera equals camera.main. Else, not else, just return camera. There we go. And so what this is now we can say camera.world to screen point. And we can pass it our track.position. And you can see how it has some unusual arguments now that we're talking about a world with plenty of VR in it. But we don't need any VR for this. It would look really weird anyway. Besides, it makes me too sick to try and work in VR. So I won't be releasing any VR games until they fix motion sickness. Camera to world to screen point. Yep, that's the one. We need to actually save that, though. And then we can try and set our position to that. Maybe. Is it rect transform? Do I have to get the rect transform? I can't remember. rt.position equals p. I actually don't know if this will work because I can't remember how the rect transform tracks. But either way, we have to actually tell it what it's tracking, and what it's tracking is this path. Nope. It's this pilot ship. I was born on a pirate ship. And you can see how it is not in the same place that it was. And that is on the bridge. So that's the right spot. But as you can see, the duty is in a weird location. So what we're going to do is check and make sure that our offset here... Okay, so our offset goes away. Because our offset goes away, we're going to need to have an empty object. And we'll put the panel inside of this empty object. Because we don't want our offset to go away. Now we'll hit play. That's better. So obviously that's not like very nice looking right now, and I can't move the camera. But if I do move the camera by grabbing main camera here and going over to game, and I can just like slide it around, you can see how it tracks the right location. Now getting this to actually look good is going to be another story, but as long as I can get it to function first, I can get it to look good second. At least that's the theory. So we are going to do a little bit, just a tiny bit of polishing right now, just to make it a little bit less crap. And what we're going to want to do is add in another panel. This is going to be another black panel, and it's going to just be centered and width 5, and then we'll just drag it up like this. There we go. So the only problem with this now, besides its unique ugliness, is that it doesn't actually tell you what the task is. We have to have it do that. So there are a lot of ways to do this. One is I can use some stuff I already made that matches the names of the tasks. But later on, we're going to need to have things like character portraits pop up on it. So using a quick plugin like that might be a bad idea. Let's just go ahead and make a custom thing specifically for that. We'll call it Task UI. Come on. And we'll pop that up. And basically what Task UI will do is it'll just have a bunch of UI elements, and it'll connect them every frame or whatever to whatever task we're talking about. So namespace crew. Public task, and then we'll have public text, task name, task duration, that's take duration, and task crew summary. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to start by calling update, and we're going to continue. If no task, we don't even need that. If no task, then return. If there is a task, task name dot name equals name. Task dot name. Task duration. That's not how you do it. Task duration dot text equals, and then we're going to grab the task's time. So I've forgotten what I named it. Hours passed since completion is the opposite of what I want. Modified task length minus task.hours, task.work, task.time. runtime. There it is. And then we'll have a task crew summary dot text equals task dot crew or required crew dot required workers plus equals workers. But if it's not around, we need to make ourselves scarce. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this game object here. We're going to call this task UI. And we're going to call this a task UI as a container. Now, can I add a canvas group on a canvas? I can. Does it work? Oh, okay. So this doesn't need to be the container. It can actually be the task UI. And this will be 3D tracker. There we are. And the task UI, we'll drop the task UI element on it, like so. We'll drop in, oh, I guess it looks like I have some spelling errors or something because that did not take. But that's no biggie. We'll fix it in a second. So we've got all of this updating and stuff going on. But what we need to do is understand that we have a canvas group and we're going to want to track it. So protected canvas group CG, and then it's going to have an underscore in front of it. That's not an underscore, that's a plus. And then we'll have protected canvas group CG get. If not CG, then CG equals get component CG canvas group. Return CG. And we're going to have a require component type of canvas group. And then down here, what we're going to do is, depending on whether the task is running or not, we're going to turn ourselves invisible. So float alpha equals task.running 1, 0. And then we say if cg.alpha does not equal alpha, then mathf.towards, move towards, there it is. And then we'll just specify cg.alpha, alpha, and time.delta time. And that'll fade in and out. And also we're going to go ahead and say if task.running, update this stuff. If it's not running, then don't update this stuff. That's a waste of everybody's time. To be honest, we don't need to update that every frame. We could do it with a task dirty function or an on hour response. But it's fine as it is. It's not going to be so heavy I worry about it. And it should now track. There we are. Okay, so it's not working because I didn't actually specify anything. Right, hold on. Doop. 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 There we are. And you can see how it's updating, even though the task shouldn't be running. It is running. So I think that I forgot to have this take a certain amount of time, didn't I? Runtime. A base task length, that is 5. So why isn't it? I'm only taking one of the elements, aren't I? Yeah, that's not what I wanted. I just want task length. There we are. Now, of course, the other problem is that we only have one of our tasks set up with this. So we're going to go over to the other task and quickly drop it in. So paste. And obviously, the only change is that it is going to be tracking a different unit. And it's going to be responding to a different unit. And then we'll hit play. And you can sort of see the problems with this kind of naive approach, but you can also see that it functions. The only problem I have with this right now is that the actual path doesn't include the final destination, and that's because I left it out of the pathing. I just forgot. So we're going to have to add it in manually, and that could be added in the path, or it could be added in here. I think it makes more sense to add it into the path. So we'll go over to the task, and when we search for the path here, we're just going to add it in. So path length is not less than 0, then path.add, and then we'll add in the actual target, which is duty. But we only really want to do that if it exists. Well, it doesn't matter. That's good enough. I'm worried about this, but if it barfs errors, I'll know what I did wrong. Seems like it worked. All right. Certainly the most exciting of streams, and I'm sure you'll all agree. I can tell because I started at 5 viewers and now I'm down to 2. First, let's go ahead and just move this camera a little bit, and then I'll take some screenshots, and I think we're going to call it a day. I did some work off screen, and I think I might do some more work off screen, but my voice is really going, so I have to stop talking. But I'll take some screenshots, and if you have any questions, now would be a good time to ask them. There we go. Pop on over here and made path displays work. Still extraordinarily ugly. That's not how you spell extraordinarily. There's an R in there somewhere. Is it extraordinarily? Oh, there's an I in there. Boy, you think I'd know how to spell that. But all the pieces work, and that's what matters most. Indeed, our screenshot Saturday. Yeah, there we go. There's not a shot in there. Boy, my brain just shut off. It's like, oh, it's been an hour, time for me to just shut down entirely. You didn't need your brain, did you? All right, so that was that. Yeah, see all you folks some other time. On Wednesday, if you care to come back, or next Saturday, otherwise.